Good evening. I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the City Council for the City of Calistoga. It is Tuesday, October 17th at 6:01 p.m. City Clerk Flamson, has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Thank you very much. Can we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Lopez Ortega?
Here.
Councilmember Kraus?
Here.
Councilmember Barnes?
Here.
Mayor Vice Mayor
Me too,
Sorry.
I almost said yeah.
Vice Mayor Dunsford?
Here.
Mayor Canning?
Here. Thank you very much. If you all could please stand and join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a special meeting. This is an agenda that was pulled together quickly in light of what we have all recently been through and actually, in truth be told, still going through and still being impacted by. We are going to save any briefings, commentary, anything of that nature relative to the Tubbs fire and its impact on Napa Valley and specifically on Calistoga and the mandatory evacuation order for the city of Calistoga. We will be addressing that in further detail at our next meeting. This is a bit of legal and administrative business we need to get through today. With that said, I will call for any oral communication. Not seeing any, I'll close oral communication and bring it back to, while it's not on the agenda here, entertain a motion for adoption of the meeting agenda as presented unless a modification is requested.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kraus, a second by Councilmember Barnes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Under general government, we have two items. Number one, a consideration of a resolution ratifying the proclamation of the existence of a local emergency. Recommended action this evening is to adopt the resolution as presented. You have that in your agenda packet. Is there any discussion on this item by council members? All right. Anyone in the public interested in addressing this? All right. Closed to the public. Entertain a motion on this item as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kraus. I have a second by Councilmember Lopez Ortega. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Number two, consideration of a resolution proclaiming the termination of a local emergency order. The recommended action as presented is to adopt the resolution. Do we have, that's item number 2 in your packet. Do we have any discussion or questions by council?
Yes.
Yes, Councilmember Kraus.
As some of you are aware, possibly all of you, I have some familiarity with the Stafford Act owing to the fact that I was the OES director for Sutter County for 10 years and brought us through 5 presidentially declared disasters. I'm wondering as to the wisdom of us terminating the emergency at this time for a couple of reasons. First reason is, and I'm assuming that we either have a presidential declaration right now or we're expecting one. I don't know. Diane, do you know if we have received a presidential dec as yet?
We received a presidential recognition of the emergency order signed by the governor of the state.
Okay, that's the first step.
Yeah, sorry, I should have introduced at the beginning. Supervisor Dillon is here with us today, if you'd like to come up to the podium. By the way, Supervisor Dillon, who has done an amazing job getting us attention, focus, and resources through our very unique situation in the evacuation of an entire community.
That's what I'm here for. And
Thank you very much.
having been intimately involved Tuesday night with your evacuation situation, I just felt the need to be here to see you end it, terminate the emergency. I'm not, I think that the mayor is correct. We got whatever we needed to be able to get individual assistance from FEMA, which is, so that we got up to get that, we've been up to the, a long ways up the chain of command.
Correct. And the first thing you do is you get the governor has to sign to submit it federally. And
Right.
I'm aware of all that. And sometimes it takes a little while, even given the size of a disaster that we have, before the Stafford Act is applies to public assistance, which actually is assistance to governmental agencies where we're reimbursed for our expenses. But the Stafford Act does a couple of other things. One is that under certain circumstances, it waives requirements for environmental impact reports. And this may be very important to us because of our reservoir. Our reservoir watershed has been severely impacted by the fire. What I suspect is going to happen the first couple of heavy rains we get, and I pray we get good heavy rains, we're going to have debris flow into that reservoir that's going to be significant. I have seen reservoirs of our size totally get clogged with logs and floating all kinds of stuff that's going to come on down. So my question is, has anybody looked into how much of our watershed has been destroyed?
So if I can address that, and now that I'm understanding what your question is, last night I represented the city of Calistoga along with all the other cities in the county with a meeting with the Western Director for FEMA, and then more importantly with the Director of Cal OES. All of those triggers have been flipped. So Stafford Act, waiving of the environmental, we're looking to default to the federal government's debris management situation. They've already issued or sent out WERT, which has to WERT through CAL FIRE, which has something to do with the watersheds and all of that.
Yeah,
Yep, all that was activated.
And there may be some things, some steps that we can take to minimize that by putting some barriers in to prevent that debris flow. So my total thing is that if we terminate our emergency right now, and then a couple of months down the road, we have a debris flow that requires emergency measures, we may be out of the window of opportunity to get the federal declaration money that we would get had we, and they used to call them DSRs, damage survey reports, had we submitted a claim for it during the course of the emergency. So if we've terminated the emergency and then we find we have an emergency 3 or 4 months later, it might require a second presidential declaration, and then our amount of damage may not be enough to warrant that. So that's my concern about terminating the emergency at this time. And it sounds like Chris has attended some meetings and
just last night.
okay, all righty. So was the termination of the emergency at this time on the advice of others or our own decision?
That was our own City Manager Feek looking to.
Yes, I'll answer that question, and if I could have time in a minute to go back to the reservoir. So when we met and debriefed yesterday, we had several discussions about the fire, about the threat of fire. We're still receiving briefings from CAL FIRE related to the fire on Mount St. Helena, as well as fires in the surrounding areas. Currently, the need to continue operating our EOC here in Calistoga. We don't have any operations that we're taking part of. There's a little bit, phone calls back and forth to the EOC, but that's going to be very minuscule compared to what we had been doing last week.
You can man the EOC with an iPhone.
Exactly. So we haven't felt at this point like we're still responding to the emergency like we were last week, and staff all felt, in speaking with the many people who were there yesterday, the mayor was there. Also, we felt like it was an appropriate time to deactivate the OC. Related to the reservoir, the issue that we're going to have, and so I've already reached out to obtain a FEMA claims adjuster to assist with the preparation of any FEMA claim. We have a 30-day window to notify FEMA of a potential claim. So we're already assessing damage, and we'll certainly be looking at the reservoir. There's approximately 2,000 feet of watershed area which was burned. And Councilmember Kraus is exactly right, that will be a significant challenge for us as we have erosion into the reservoir. It'll reduce our water capacity as well as the water quality. It'll have an impact. Specifically, the city owns 200 acres of property which was burnt. That goes directly into the reservoir. Now, whether we file a claim through our insurance, our property insurance, to preserve and protect our assets downstream, whether we work with NRCS, who also has regular fast tracks to getting environmental impact reports, getting those done and getting projects kind of pre-approved, or whether we actually file a claim with FEMA is still yet to be determined. We'll at least put FEMA on notice in the next 30 days, so that does have a trigger for a claim, but I still, at this time, I'm not sure which bucket we're going to try and get money out of for that particular loss.
I think FEMA's going to be a little more, they're always stingy, but they're probably going to be even a little more so given the number of hurricanes that have had huge amounts of damage also, plus the size of this incident. So I just wanted to make sure that we had taken into account that because the fire's out, in my estimation, or controlled in our area, does not necessarily mean that the emergency is over.
And that was made very clear last night at the meeting with CAL FIRE, Cal OES, FEMA, and there was one other agency there that indeed this is an extended period. And even if we close ours here, as is being suggested, we're still covered under the counties, and we're also covered under the states, and then with the recognition of the federal order as well.
I think that property that we own is out in the county area anyway. It's unincorporated, so it's all the county's problem, right?
So Diane will cover
Diane
all of
just
that.
missed that completely.
Our land and your territory. So yeah, that
All
was in all of the municipalities in the county last night were expressing that, and the director of Cal OES was very clear that that's covered, and FEMA had covered that. So there's about 3 layers that get us covered. So
All right.
and our supervisor's nodding, I won't say violently, but aggressively.
I remember that from some prior emergency we had, that you were covered
Correct.
under that, so.
So my question is, does it make any sense to keep things intact at, say, the command center? Because we're not out of the woods yet. You know, there's no rain. Another fire could start up. Winds could start up. Does it make any sense to just be ready for something else?
You know, probably people who live in this world more than I do would have a better opinion, but at least from certain
The
perspective.
people that live in that world were in that meeting yesterday who gave the recommendation to close.
Oh, they did?
And,
Okay.
and the only comment that
I
I
meant
would,
our meeting in town yesterday.
yeah, the only comment that I would make is I think there'd be good enough argument to determine that that was a second separate disaster if there was another lightning strike. Now, a fire changing direction and moving would not, but let's say there was a new lightning strike.
It would be
or-
a new incident.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
Okay.
What would be the adverse effect, if any, if we did not terminate the emergency? Well, it seems to me we're rushing. I know nothing
It's-
about the
That's-
Stafford Act.
that was my
and
initial-
I believe everything that you said and you said, but it seems awfully quick in light of what we just came through and what we're still going through in the rest of the county. I believe we're still in an emergency situation.
I just drove by Rutherford about 30 minutes ago, and it's on fire. So-
Yeah, I mean, why are we doing this? And is there any bad causes if we don't do it?
eventually, you have to.
Well,
Correct.
I
And the
certainly-
law is that at the first opportunity, the elected body must declare or must confirm that an emergency existed, because
We did.
there are several people in town that can declare an emergency. Dylan is one, the fire chief's another, the police chief's another, that have that authority to do.
Right.
And then at the first opportunity, the elected board is supposed to confirm that an emergency existed,
Which we just did.
which we just did, correct. I do not know, not recall, that there is the same urgency to terminate the incident.
Dylan, is there any reason in particular, if we kept this open, there's any,
I mean,
Negative
just even
impact at this
another
point.
week.
We had to meet anyway to open, so
I don't think there'd be any reason not to. One of the things we'll be very conscious about are things like the response that we've had. For example, last week we had a lot of folks, all hands on deck. Everyone was called in, spared no expense in staffing and equipment. We had contractors, as far as cleanup, similar approach. So I think from this point moving forward, I'm not aware of any negative impacts on leaving it open, other than the discussions at public meetings with officials from FEMA, from Cal OES have had these discussions. From our staff, internal discussions, meetings with Cal Fire, we felt it was appropriate at this point, like the threat had been outside Calistoga.
If we
But I
don't, I'm thinking about it, if we don't terminate the emergency tonight, there is a period of time over which we must then confirm that the emergency continues to exist, terminate the incident, or terminate the emergency conditions, and I want to say it's 30 days. I may be pulling that one out of my ear, I don't know. But there is, like I say, not the urgency to terminate the emergency, but if we don't terminate the emergency, it has to be renewed at a certain interval, which I believe is 30 days. It may be shorter than that, but as I recall, it's about every 30 days. And I think within 30 days, we'll have an idea of what our costs are going to be, what issues we might have up at the reservoir. It might behoove us. Someone might come up there and have a look at it and say, holy mackerel, you better get up there right now with a dozer and start moving stuff around. So anyway,
all right, at this point then, for the entertainment or the consideration of the council, I'll make a motion that we continue this item until our next regularly scheduled meeting. In the interim, Dylan, can you please get some more input on this? And then, again, we do have verification from Cal OES, FEMA, in FEMA, that we are covered for the duration of this, and with the expectation that costs may be going on for years to come, so.
once they open the DSR on it, then there's an initial value that's placed on it. There's some tracking that has to be done on it, and there's dates certain, because we've had some other FEMA contracts for water tanks and stuff like that, that work must be completed. But I believe in order to do the work that we need to do up there, most likely, in my opinion, we need to do it while we have the emergency authority to move forward without.
And before it starts raining.
And before it starts raining.
So I will motion to continue this item.
I'll second it.
We have a second by Councilmember Barnes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we have a unanimous decision. Thank you very much. Just for clarification, we will remain then under the proclamation which we just approved, which we were required to do so, of the existence of a local emergency. In the interim, Dylan, get us some more information, but no harm, no foul at this point. All right, with that said, I will adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is November 3rd, already into November, huh? No, November 7th. All right. November 7th, 2017 in the same space. Thank you all. Stay safe and look out for one another. And again, we'll do a full briefing at our next meeting as to all the facts, figures, and details. Adjourned.